where we're heading for the coming 10 years. And I ask for a round of applause for all the speakers in this session so that they can come and join us. Big round of applause for them, please. This roundtable is going to be chaired by Juan Francisco Delgado, Director General of the Fernando de los Rios Consortium. So, Juan Francisco, it's all yours. Hello. Good morning. Good evening, brother. It is great to see this room full of people. There's a clock there that says it's 1 o'clock. So we have one hour. Oh, so we have 1 hour. So I believe that it has started already to work. So we start this session on Guadalinfo that intended to be devoted to Guadalinfo, to a specific space in Guadalinfo. And we want to have all actors in Guadalinfo, some representing people that have a lot to say. And this discussion will be followed by Twitter for the Smart 13. And we can ask questions. I'm going to try and follow the Twitter timeline so that we can see what we want to say about it, and we will have time for questions from the audience, of course. There will be people handing you the mics so that you can ask questions about it. It is an open network, a participatory network, a dynamic network, and one that intends to develop further, that intends to grow further, and that intends to learn. I'm going to try to speak for only a short time, and I thank all the attendants. Miriam has already introduced them, and I will give the floor first to the Director General of Technological Social Services of Information, Ángel Ortiz, from the Regional Government of Economy and Innovation, from the regional government. So Ángel has the floor.
Well, thank you, Juan Francisco. Welcome, you all. Thank you for being here. And I can assure you that of all the activities for this forum, this is the one which was most interesting for me, because I feel very close to all of you people. You are the ones who make this project possible, and we can be very proud of it. So in that sense, I would like to thank the work you've done. My colleagues here today with me, or in this panel, I wouldn't want to take very long to explain myself, because I share most of the messages which have been presented here in the welcoming session. I haven't come here to talk, but I'm here more to listen, for you to tell us what aspects are needed, what does Guadalinfo need, and to continue working, to continue developing, and giving us so many happy moments. Hopefully, the rest of my colleagues will do it like this. We want to make you the protagonists, and we want you to have an active attitude for an exchange of opinions and an exchange of ideas. Of course, I'll be willing to answer any question you have. This is a very lively project, a very solid one, and a very stable one after 10 years of management. As you know, they started in 2003 with 26 centers, and we have more than 740 nowadays. This is a project which shows every day that it was a very positive thing to do by the regional government. And of course, later on we had the provincial governments as well added, and the different sectors added, the sectors that are part of it today. Of course, I wanted to thank them as well, and I invite them and encourage them to keep on working with us, because my main message, as I said before, from the regional government of Andalusia is that we firmly believe in this project, and that it is and will be one of the main projects defended by us, one of the projects that we defend in this region. It's true as well, and I wanted to comment on this as well to avoid any kind of confusion, if that's happened at all. It's true that we're trying to generate a sustainability model which allows us to face the difficult moments we're going through without having to put our project at risk. So in that sense, the search for a sustainability formula, some of you maybe have thought that the project was at risk, but no, that's not the case. All the projects nowadays, all the active projects, have to face a sustainability formula which would allow them to develop in time, notwithstanding the different circumstances we're going through. So in that sense, I would like to encourage you to participate and offer any kind of activity which could be included in this project to make it more sustainable. And in that sense, to say that our interest is to have a private-public cooperation. This is something which has been mentioned very widely. We wanted to open and give the private sector the possibility to offer something to the project, but I also wanted to mention that we're not compromising the free access services that we're already offering. So we would say that we're not substituting, we're complementing here. We also wanted to tell you that this project started with the idea of reducing the digital breach, and then we had the objective of putting an end to the knowledge breach, and finally the social innovation sector. That doesn't mean that we're going to leave aside other objectives we had before, the use breach or the digital breach. We'll always have that here in our new technology sector, but we are an open group. We're open to migration, we're open to changes, and of course all of these sectors will require some of the activities we're developing. So the reduction of this digital divide is very important. I also wanted to tell you that the experience that you have day by day is projected further from our frontiers, and to say somehow from the Innovation Secretariat in the Regional Government of Andalusia, we're promoting this project with a knowledge society model. And of course, within this model, we don't have to talk a lot about this, but it's a very significant model. And this experience, as I was saying, this experience you have, it's that can be taken to other communities and other places in the world, and events like today's make it very easy to cooperate with other areas, with other places. So I would encourage you to, once we've finished with this session, I would encourage you, as I said, to continue working and to communicate with other colleagues around the world, to generate possible cooperations, and maybe to be able to take our knowledge society model to other places. And maybe they will be able to use it there as well. Of course, I would like to thank you again for being here. Please be active, and with no further delay, I would like to give the floor to the next speaker. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Ángel, por la apuesta de sí.
Okay, thank you very much for this proposal and for how you presented it, and for the proposal of the regional government of Andalusia and the Guadalinfo network. They say that actions speak louder than words, so it's important to highlight all that you said. We thank you for that, and it's important to talk about that proposal for the totality for all of the Guadalinfo network centers. So I think that your words are very clear. Vicente's words were very clear as well, And we're going to give the floor to the New Technology Assembly and Communication from the provincial government of Cordoba, also the mayor of Cabra, but here he's comes representing the provincial government, part of the Fernando de los Rios Consortium, and he's also someone who uses social networks very actively. He's got his own blog, his own webpage, and he's very active in networks. So I'd like to give the floor to Fernando for him to explain to us what his point of view is on these 10 years of Guadalinfo and its future. Well, thank you very much. First of all, on behalf of the local government and other Andalusian local governments, I'd like to thank the organization for having invited me to be here sharing this panel with the rest of my colleagues. I had prepared a very short speech. I wouldn't want to dwell too much on this because I think it's more important that we can debate on all these topics. But there are many messages that maybe I wanted to give you in a very short period of time. So, well, first of all, I wanted to very briefly comment on what the role of these of our government is in Guadalinfo. I would divide it into three aspects. The first one of them would be as a part of the Fernando de los Rios Consortium. We organize or help to an implementation work of the activities developed by the center. But we have a second role, which is fulfilling the provincial government, which are risen to be here as the administration. We offer our support and cooperation to the different councils in our province. So that's what we do with the different Guadalinfo centers in the different municipalities of the Andalusian provinces. And thirdly, another aspect, which I think is the most important one, it's offering support in a direct and indirect way to the different interest groups, which are the ones which actually give a content to Guadalinfo, and those are the ones which really promote those social innovation projects about which we will talk later on. And they are promoting the development of our regions. I belong to a region from the center of Andalusia where Guadalinfo is giving excellent results with digital literacy, and also with the creation of those and the empowering and the promotion of the talent of people in our region. As I was saying, another fundamental idea would be that for everybody, the use of new technologies is important. The use of the internet, it's something that has meant revolution from the personal and family sector to the professional sector. It's much more important to take these technologies to the rural sphere, which there are still many municipalities, medium-sized municipalities, and different social groups in different municipalities, where the possibility to have access to technologies and new technologies is non-existent, because they just don't reach the supply companies don't reach these areas. So in that sense, one of the main objectives would be to promote the same rights for everybody. This is Guadalinfo. This is what we do. This is what the regional government of Andalusia has been doing through the Fernando de los Rios Consortium. So the involvement of the local and regional governments it's needed for the right of all citizens to have access to new technologies and the information knowledge, which will promote the growth and the social and economic growth in areas which are poorer in our autonomous community. It's very important for the future to work on this, and for that, two people have a very significant role. And these two people are here in our panel. We have users, which give sense to our center, and dynamizers, which develop great work, facing all the difficulties that they can find in our times, and which are, part of the circumstances we're having to live through. But every time we visit a Guadalinfo center, we see how people are eager to improve, and they have this passion for the modernization of our people. The results are very positive from our government in Cordoba. We value in a very satisfactory way the management made by telecenters and Guadalinfo centers in general. In Cordoba, we're reaching 35% of the population. It's a significant piece of data. And 3 out of 4 projects which are developed in our centers are social innovation related projects. And it's something that it's very much needed. And it's going to allow for our economic, social, personal and professional development, allowing loads of people to find a job. And also it's going to promote entrepreneurship, which is very important in our time. The future of Guadalinfo is something that we still have to create. The assessment throws very positive results, but we still have to take new steps to reach all those groups of population and to widen the scope of action we're working with. We can get that working jointly and also being hopeful and working very hard, as we were saying. And this is what we have come here to do. So I will end up thanking you again and congratulating you on your work again. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Fernando, for your presentation and also for having presented your program so clearly and also your commitment to the Guadalinfo network, this firm engagement in this field of work. I'd also like to thank everyone who's following us on the internet, because there are many people who are following us online and they're sending in their comments. And I would just like to take the liberty of commenting one of the comments that's been received by Juan José Guerra. And he states that those of us who are really pushing and driving this process are the ones that need to feel that you actually believe in us. And I think if we have to express this, well, I think that you, as the drivers of the network, are the true heart of this community. You are the heart, the hands, the head, the feet of this network. And I have to say that your work means that the institutions that are supporting and funding the network will continue, particularly in such difficult economic times, to strengthen their commitment to the network. So I'd like to acknowledge and thank you for your work. Your work is essential in order for us to achieve this transformation in Andalusia. And you're performing a very inestimable task right down from the grassroots level up to the top. So once again, our firm acknowledgement and recognition. And it's not just through applause that we can recognize your efforts, but also through the budget that is assigned every year by the Consortium. And undoubtedly, town and city councils clearly play an important role. Many of you know this because mayors and mayoresses are firmly committed to this work. Obviously, you know that sometimes you have to do tasks that are really not part of your functions or responsibilities. You have to be everywhere at the same time, and we know that resources are scarce. Today, we have a mayor with us. I'm sure that many of you know Jerónimo Guerrero. Jerónimo Guerrero is a mayor who speaks with his citizens in the street, but is also somebody who uses social networking to speak with his citizens. And he was one of the first 2.0 devices, and he used internet to communicate with citizens. Jerónimo is the mayor of the town of Coronil, where many different activities are carried out. This is partly the case because they have a true jewel in the crown and among their politicians who are really driving this process. Jerónimo is also firmly engaged in the projects, and we would like the mayors to send out a message to everyone else that despite the economic difficulties and hardship facing town and city councils, that they should also step up their commitment to social innovation and the Guadalinfo network. Jerónimo, you have the floor. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to participate in this panel with my colleagues. The atmosphere here at the forum is wonderful. From the standpoint of the town and city councils, I think that we really have to send out two messages. First of all, those who funded and invented this, namely the regional governments of Andalusia, the provincial governments, with the support of local councils, have been very important in this process. And secondly, it's yourselves that we have to acknowledge, you as the drivers of this process. Very often you engage in different activities, and your functions are very clearly defined, but 99.9% of small towns and villages do many more activities, and they are they offer wholehearted support to these telecentres. These centres often open at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and every person that comes is different. Everyone has different needs. The representative of the regional government of Andalusia mentioned that we have now managed to overcome the digital gap. There was a before and after the Guadalinfo network. Coronil has 5,000 inhabitants, and there were people who had never had contact or access, not just to internet, but even to a computer. And this wouldn't have changed if it hadn't been for the Guadalinfo network. As I said before, everyone is a world in themselves, and everyone needs a driver. Everyone needs more training, more preparation, and more commitment. And that is something that they found in the Guadalinfo network. A user who comes at 5 o'clock to a Guadalinfo centre may ask for any type of information from Guadalinfo in Coronil, which I'm familiar with. So today, as Juan Francisco mentioned, and through the social through social networking tools, which are now a key instrument, not just from a political standpoint, but also at institutional level, it's important that there are people who talk about social networking, about Facebook. Many people don't even know how to pronounce it. They say Facebook in Spanish. And Twitter. So a population with approximately 5,000 inhabitants, there may be 1,000 people that are already linked or on social networks of some sort. And much of this is thanks to the work that's been carried out by Guadalinfo. Guadalinfo is truly responsible for providing these tools and instruments for these people to participate in social networks. So as I said before, there's a before and an after Guadalinfo. Today, if there's somebody who's not connected to the internet or on a social network, then they're really missing out on what is happening outside in the external world, in the outside world. So I'd just like to say a word in favour of the work carried out by local councils, bearing in mind the difficult climate. It's important to take these aspects into account because unfortunately there are still politicians and people who don't believe in all of these things that I'm talking about, and it's very difficult to maintain budgets and funds without this type of support. Fortunately, institutions such as provincial councils and the regional government, with the support of town and city councils, do so. But I would, on behalf of everyone, like to apologise for sometimes being a little excessive in our insistence on asking for your support. Obviously, if we know that something can't be done, then we don't ask for it to be done. But the wonderful work that's being done by all of the stakeholders who are driving this process is something that we truly are thankful for. So please continue working in this way. I'd like to ask all of the provincial councils, the regional government, to continue working. Many of you probably come from small towns and villages, and you know that there was a before and after the Guadalinfo network. So please continue working, and thank you very much for all of your efforts. Thank you very much, Jerónimo. As always, clearer than water in what you have to say. I'd now like to hand the floor to Anabel Carrillo, who is the president of the Social Council of the University of Cordoba, and we also felt that it was important to have a representative from the university field relating to the development of training, education, a representative of the development of education at university level in our country. So we felt that the university should have a voice. Anabel has been with us on many occasions, but she has shared from inside and outside, from all different perspectives, all of the different features and characteristics of the Guadalinfo network, and she can talk to us perhaps about the types of demands that may be received by the Guadalinfo network so that we can serve as a lever for the territory. Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this community. And I'm going to try to offer you a different viewpoint, namely a more personal viewpoint from the university field. It's not a frontier, it's more of a territory which seeks to share social flows, civil flows with the community, the university community. Although it's true that we're moving forward, or these different areas are moving forward at a fast pace, it's important to make greater efforts to find a more effective response to everything that is occurring out in the street. Working with Guadalinfo at the Social Council has always been a guarantee of quality and service, firstly with Belén and then with the Inmaculada. And this has also given us the opportunity to obtain better knowledge of what technology means for people. But before making that assessment, I would just like to make some reflections and share these with you. At present, I think that we face two key challenges. One is the creation of employment, and the other is the reconstruction of areas of coexistence. Currently, the public stage is almost like a battlefield, and I think that we have to provide spaces and areas for people to coexist, to live together, and peacefully at that. And I say that because at this moment in time, technology is developing at a breakneck speed. Interestingly, inequalities are increasing worldwide in all countries. Higher incomes have gone from percentages of accumulating wealth. The other day, I think, Saskia Sashin, the new award winner of the Prince of Asturias Awards, defined what the global society was and stated that in New York in the last 9 years, 1% that had 12% of the wealth in 2000 was currently at 40%. And that is occurring in France, in Ireland, in Latin America, in China, and in Spain, where social inequalities are extremely severe, perhaps the greatest in Europe. It's true that we're immersed in a technological boom. The technology sector is growing in the best possible way. In economic terms, technology industries are continuing to record significant profits. There are technology managers and directors who don't pay tax in this country. There are tech companies that don't pay tax in this country. And I think that this dominant trend is not only leading to social exclusion and inequality, which have, of course, been part of the history of humankind, but also a part of the social drama of all citizens. I just wanted to mention that point to explain that counteracting these logical dominant trends requires a very strong social and cooperative approach of a huge magnitude. And obviously every contribution as individuals is just a small grain of salt in this, a small contribution to this process. But thanks to these social technologies which are able to mobilize and foster important changes, aspects that we should all be involved in. At present, the university is facing a very severe crisis. It's a critical moment for the university. The public university system is being attacked on many different fronts. There are also many students who are unable to pay their second-year university fees. There are other students who have completed master's programs with loans that were provided or that were granted to them, and they're unable to pay those loans back. civil servants, teachers, professors. Well, I don't even have to explain what their situation is with a reduction in their salaries, facing enormous difficulties when it comes to performing their work. And also, suppliers of services to universities are also collecting their invoices very, very late. Previously, it was a case of receiving their invoices or collecting invoices after 3 or 4 months, and now they're just in a situation when they don't even know if they'll get paid. So it's a time when we need to connect even more. We have to connect knowledge with social action, with the heart of social action, with the people. This is something which is also characteristic of the Guadalinfo community. And these dynamizers, these drivers, know that their role is extremely important in order to create social spaces to generate employment. And therefore, these upheavals, these economic aggressions against certain social drivers and stakeholders has to be combated with utmost strength. Spanish universities had launched the European education space. This meant that education had to be active. Students had to be at the core of the system. Students had to learn through a hands-on approach, through a closer relationship with the environment, and this process has been halted. And now I'd like to send out a message to promote more collaboration and cooperation. I don't want to be pessimistic. I don't just want to be pessimistic. I think that the university sector currently needs a community such as the Guadalinfo community, the Consortium and the Telecentres network, because we really have to start connecting. We really have to start connecting both spaces. That's the only way that we will be able to find certain responses and answers to all of the actions that we have to perform. So to be more specific, I'd just like to highlight that we have to adopt a shared agenda, and I would mention this to the Consortium and public universities of Andalusia. It's important that our collaboration goes beyond the activities of universities within Andalusia. We have to find physical and virtual spaces, but also physical spaces such as Hub, Media Lab, meeting spaces between the university community and people living in each territory. Because the university community is made up of veterinarians, technology experts, historians, scientists, etc. And it's important that the contact between these academicians and disciplines is closer with the rest of society. And this has to be done through the university network. The objective has to be to create jobs, create spaces for coexistence. And we have to do away with this idea of a formal and informal learning spaces. At present, well, I think that today all university classes should be projecting and reflecting what is taking place here. They should do this by reflecting this and screening this on screens in their different auditoriums and classrooms, and find a way in which they can combine the rigidity of formal education with the flexibility of spaces such as the Guadalinfo community. This is extremely difficult to do. It's important to have a lot of creativity, a lot of creative skill to be able to connect both spaces adequately. But I'm convinced that there are many people in both universities and also in the Telecentres network who can together project spaces of coexistence that are much more important and significant for all of us. And I'd like to conclude there. Thank you. Thank you very much, Annabelle. That was a very interesting presentation. We're now going to listen what Magda from Seville said on a tweet we previously referred to the importance that the drivers of this process have. And I think that all of you know who David López Parra is. He's the person who's driving was one of the towns where one of the first Guadalinfo centers was set up back in 2003. He's now in Benatae. But David was perhaps the protagonist and the exceptional witness of the development of the network in situ, just like the majority of these stakeholders. The situation has changed enormously over the last 10 years when Facebook and Twitter didn't exist. Previously, we were talking about illiteracy and connectivity, and we can see how the network has developed over the years. You've experienced all of this process, and I'd like you to give us your insight, and also the insight on behalf of your colleagues, their insight about what they think about all of these things. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to put forward the opinion of facilitators, as perhaps the first facilitator that initiated the Guadalinfo process. Well, my task in this panel would perhaps be to offer some reflections on the way in which the project began and where we are today. We talk a lot about social innovation. We evaluate numerically the results of projects and activities. But it's true that all of this has foundations, and these foundations began with the first Guadalinfo Center, which gradually expanded. One reflection we can make is that when the Guadalinfo Center began, well, it was inaugurated in Puerta de Segura, and we were aware of the huge digital gap which existed in Andalusia. We were one step behind, as we'd historically been at other parts, in other times in the past. And a person who can't read is not illiterate, but a person who's illiterate is somebody who can't use a computer. So that digital gap existed. It's true that today, and which demonstrates how far we've come, is that today we are the center of a global technological meeting of these telecenters, and I think that there's a big difference between that initial idea of the digital gap and where we've come to today. When we started, our focus was very much on digital literacy, on users. I remember when people would come to us, we had to explain what a mouse was for, what a keyboard would do, and even what the screen was, and that the mouse was used to place text on the screen. And I can tell you how difficult it was for me to come right down to that level and look at things from the perspective of those users who had absolutely no idea about new technologies. For me, it was much more difficult to try to understand where they were coming from than what we're trying to do today, which is something beautiful. But I have to say that those were the true foundations of the project itself. As regards some unusual anecdotes which explain how the territory has changed thanks to the Guadalinfo initiative, I can tell you one story. When we were opening different centers around Andalusia, I would speak to different facilitators who were always a type of benchmark or reference for the startup of a project. And there were people in local towns and villages in Jaén, for example, the province next to Granada, and this was back in 2003, and they said that there was no broadband network in their town, and they would have no internet connection for 10 years. We're talking about 2003. Well, when companies saw that a Guadalinfo Center was going to be set up in the town, there was broadband connection for everyone. So we've not only transformed users, changed the way they think, the way they use new technologies, we've also transformed the territory to such an extent that there were probably, at that time, there were people who probably couldn't have even had broadband connection in their homes if they'd asked for it privately. So, obviously, the beginnings were very successful. People embraced this initiative very strongly. And this gave people the opportunity to use internet and to contact friends, etc. Because we felt that in many towns, many small villages, there were not many opportunities for this type of communication. Unfortunately, the centres started to expand and grow, and there were even more advanced courses which were given, and we started to provide more and more services to citizens.
I never imagined that the project could get so far, and I think it has a very good orientation. At the moment, you are in a place of work that any initiative that you have, you can carry it out, no matter what the idea is. It's not as in most of the institutions that when you come with an idea, you say, no, I'm not in charge of doing this, I can only do this and this. We have the project at the moment, and it allows to open many possibilities and cover the possibilities and the ideas that people have, and also as to change in the territory. I would like to give another example. When I started hearing all this, I thought it was just about words coming from politicians, but when you do some reflection, you find some examples of transforming the territory. For example, in my center, we've had a project called Escuela de Espaldas, and it was a physiotherapist who taught how to do some exercises to your back, and then it went on social networks and it was available on YouTube as well. There were people with back problems, and after attending the center and doing these exercises with the users, I've had users coming to me and telling me I'm now able to sleep because I have so much back pain that I couldn't leave. And people say, I come back now from work and my back doesn't hurt at all. Another example is someone saying that, for example, my mum had some pains, and I saw the video, I watched the video, and then she followed it, and the pain disappeared. So we are moving towards an element of many possibilities, and we are transforming the territory in reality. And what's the situation at the moment? Well, we are continuing on working, and that shows the way we work, because although there are many cuts, we can see that in Andalusia we are going a step further, and we are working for rights for everyone and in equality. So we have to thank the local town halls, which have facilitated infrastructure and funds. Also the institutions, Junta de Andalucía, the regional government of Andalusia, they have given support to our program, and they have supported it economically. Well, you have to be proud of where you are all at the moment and of being part of the community, and you have to continue on going ahead, because you have to be very motivated and please do not think that this is the end, because we find ourselves at a point that we can actually make a change, and we can change Andalusia, and we can get to be, and we are one of the best communities regarding innovation and transforming the territory, thanks to projects like the ones that we are carrying out. Thank you very much. Thanks, David López, for your words. Ismail was also saying the coordinator of the Centre of Seville, of CAPI Seville, and he was saying that behind all the figures and all the numbers, it's people who are behind those numbers and those figures, and those are the people who are in those centres like the Guadalinfo network. And we have here a person that represents many of the users that have been working with us since 2006, and in their villages, when they this person started in the Guadalinfo network, and then there has been a growth. I would like you to tell us what you have told us many times, and please do tell it now to the audience here. It's Rosario Claro. That's her name. I'm not going to say anything else about her because it's better if you hear her yourselves. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Francisco again for having me here once more so that I can tell my story and how I am linked to the Guadalinfo network. Well, I come from a little village in Seville called Almencilla. And as David has said, I was one of the users that I couldn't even use a mouse. I've told this story many, many times. And when I look at my life now and I reflect, I can see that the way I started and the way I got to Guadalinfo was a milestone for me. It was something very important for me, and I'm going to tell you why. I was just like a normal rural woman, as many in Andalusia, with no idea on new technologies, no idea, no training on IT. Then in 2006, in my village, I saw a sign, an ad, saying with the courses that were going to be carried out in the Guadalinfo network, and also in the courses of digital literacy. So I got to the course and I was very shy myself, because when I finished school, I hadn't had any more contact with training. And I found my angel in there. It's Mari Carmen Baitino. It's my coordinator of the center in there. And she's still the coordinator of the center in my village. And I told her that I had no idea, but I wanted to join the course. I used to work the land in my village back then. And I could then also work it to my own schedule. I got and went to the courses very, very late, and that's where I started to be interested about it and where my dreams started. I always had wanted to do something with my life. At that point, I was married and I suffered from gender violence. And if I reflect nowadays, I think that was, we could say, my way to my salvation, because I found out what I wanted to do. I wanted to start a business, and in 2007 I created my company. It was a company of offering all types of services. I was very frightened to start with, and I even cried at night, and I kept on telling myself, why have I started this? But no, I am very happy now that I did it. I continue on having my company and also adapting to the current circumstances, of course, regarding the current circumstances regarding the economy, but always very happy and also always adapting to what the market is needing in every moment. And during the first years of starting my company, I suffered gender violence. And around 4 years ago, I managed to get out of all this, and I started helping other people, getting in contact with associations. And for 3 years, I have worked as a volunteer in working in associations that help women with gender violence issues. We call ourselves survivors, women who have suffered gender violence, and we have created another project. And this is a vital project, and it's very good for me as a person, and it's very hard to see women who have gone through exactly the same problems that I went through. And that happens in Spain, that happens in all parts of the world. And we find ourselves in a moment where we are going backwards because we are losing many of the resources that we had. We don't have so much access to funds as before. So it's a group of women who are in this project, and I wanted to tell you about our mission. Our association is born from a desire of helping women who have gone or are going through any type of violence, but not only helping them, but also women who were left aside. We want to make women visible, and we want to be equal and treated equally. A survival woman that works another survival woman multiplies the effect, and like the Guadalinfo network, this is very important. So again, if I reflect now, I can see that the Guadalinfo network has saved me, and it marks a point before in my life and my life now, and I can only thank them for all this. Thank you very much.
Gracias, Rosario.
Thank you, Rosario. Of course, you have had the longest round of applause, and also from the coordinators that are here. So it's a round of applause that is as if you had 2 rounds of applause. So let's go straight to the point now. The things that are being asked on the net at the moment. So it's a question that is asked by many of the people in here, and we have to ask the questions now. What's going to happen in 2014 with the Guadalinfo networks? What's going to happen? Okay, let's go for it. Who would like to say something about this? Well, yeah, Angel likes to answer difficult questions. Well, in what I have said, well, what's going to happen with the Guadalinfo networks? Well, they are going to continue making us happy. We're going to be able to hear people saying the things that Rosario has said, so because it's very beneficial to the territories and the institutions, the Junta de Andalucía, and I hope also with the local institutions, are going to continue on helping to go on with this project, which is also even going to generate more benefits for this community. Thank you. Anybody else would like to add something? Well, I would like to insist on what I've said before. I think it's very difficult to understand many of the villages of Andalusia without these centers. They are very useful for everyone, and we have to support all this. We are going to continue on working this.
Pues si yo sí sé tocar algo el teclado es gracias a ella.
Se nota que hemos entrado en materia, ¿no?
I would also like to add that by talking to many people involved in the project, they talk about in some of the local councils, the instrument that is being used by the people is not very easy to access to it. I would like you to report those actions that from the local town halls. Now, I think that's not many cases, but there are some, and it's very damaging to the project. And the way that they use the resources to other things that have got nothing to do with the project. So I would like to urge you to talk about it with your coordinator and with the consortium so that the necessary measures can be taken. Thank you, Angel, because it was important to mention this. Well, Jerónimo, aren't you going to add anything? What's going to happen in 2014? Are the local town halls continue? I'm afraid the sound is not getting to the booth. Yes? Yeah, now. Okay, can you hear me now? Oh, before I get cut. Well, the town halls, we cannot see anything else but continuing on working on this project, so it is totally and absolutely clear. David would like to add something. From the point of view of the coordinators, we support the continuation of the project as from 2014. You have our vote for this as well. And I would like to make a reflection, now that we have representatives here from the Consortium, from the regional government of Andalusia. Something that we see in the centres, and you have to be at the centres to see all this, because sometimes you plan a lot of things, but it's different to be within the centre when you get to see all the things you talk with other coordinators, and it is something that it's a problem that should be solved. And it's also the dissemination of the things that are offered by the Guadalinfo network. I went to a meeting in our region, and there were 20 people who wanted to start businesses. And I said that I came from Guadalinfo, and I said what were the possibilities from the network, and nobody knew about this. I know that when Francisco, you go to the Guadalinfo, you ask for the Guadalinfo network, and they say, oh, it's that place with the computers. So if you see many ads, for example, about tourism in Andalusia, there would also some publicity needed to be done about what's being done on the network, on the centres, so that the people can actually see what advantages they can get from the centres, because most of the people from Andalusia, and not the users, but those the ones that have not used the centre, if they knew what they can use the centre for, if they came here to hear all that and everything that's been said, I am sure then many more projects would then happen, and then we would get even further. Rosario, yes? I would also like to say a message to whom it may concern as a businesswoman, and also in this institution of survival women. I'm the president of business people of my region, and the Guadalinfo Center is very helpful for people who want to start a business and those who are already established, because people don't know about new technologies that much, and it is very difficult to go ahead, and some people don't have even email. So in the Business Association we work with Guadalinfo, and there are courses that are organized between us all, so that they can continue and they can keep on learning. So I would like to say that the Guadalinfo network is very, very helpful, and they should continue with the task that they are carrying out. Well, we would also open some answer and question session, but we also would like to talk about the CAPIs. What are the circumstances regarding the CAPIs? So what's going to happen with them? what is the situation of the associations that don't have as much money from all the different projects. So what's going to happen with these CAPIs? How are we going to make these CAPI centers more stable? So I think it's me who has to answer this question. These centers are an extension of the Guadalinfo project, and it is as important because we go to the areas which are poorer. The project is continuing, and we are having cuts at the moment, but the project is still going on, and we're going to sign a resolution to renew all these CAPI centers, and I have to go to the tax department, the regional department of Andalusia, and that's very difficult, but we are working on this. I don't know if anybody else would like to add anything. Well, I would like to say something about a thing that's been mentioned before. In the dissemination task to make everybody know about what's going on in the networks, of course we can do it on the press, we can do it on TV. Well, I think the best way is that you go out in the streets and you go out and tell people and how important you are, so that you can get more users. I'm not saying that you're not doing it, but I think it is the best way of doing it, and do it in a coordinated way with the different coordinators in the different regions, with meetings, I'm sure, from the consortium with the regional government, and we would support all this, and so that people get to know how beneficial all the centers is. But I think it should be you the ones who should disseminate all this information, because you can get the message much better to the people. Well, I think time has run out, but I'm sure you all want to go to the third floor to have something to eat. But we are still here, and it shows how professional the people from the Guadalinfo network are, even though everyone's feeling quite hungry at the moment. Let's see if there is someone who would like to ask a question. I think the people who are going to be helping with the microphone are going to be doing exercise, because the room is quite large. Okay, if you would like to say where you come from and what your name is. Good morning, my name is Lorena, and I come from a CAPI Center, which is Public Access to the Internet Center. You have said that it's going to be signed at the moment, but this was talked about 2 months ago. So I would like to know, when are we going to get our wages? Because I've been working for the last 2 months and I've not had my wages, and I cannot stay here until tomorrow because I cannot pay a hotel, and I'm putting money from my pocket. So when am I going to get my wages? That's my question.
Well, I can tell you, although this may seem a rather institutional or formal answer, that if I could guarantee when you could get paid, I'll try and do my utmost to give you that information. Unfortunately, I can't commit myself in terms of time, perhaps 1 or 2 months. But as I said, I will do my utmost to make sure that you do get that as soon as possible. And once we've resolved that, I hope that we can go to the other side of the government, which is the Regional Ministry of Finance and Economy, to stress that that money has to be made available as soon as possible. So in 2 months, plus the 2 previous months that we haven't, the previous 2 months, that's 4 months in total, plus any more time that we can add on top of that. I'm sorry, the gentleman doesn't understand. So you said 2 months, but we don't know if we'll get paid in 2 months, in 4, or in 6. Well, I'll repeat what I said before. I wish I could tell you that you'd receive this tomorrow or the day after. If I had that money and I was able to manage the money in the account of the Directorate General, then I'd pay you tomorrow. But unfortunately, I don't have it. So what I will do is, once the resolution has been prepared regarding the different entities that have voluntarily decided to continue with their activity, we will start the next process to ensure that the funds reach you as soon as possible. Thank you very much. Thanks, Angel, for standing up for yourself and for saying things straight. And I think you took the bull by the horns there. More questions? Here, there's a question here at the front. Thank you very much. First of all, for inviting me to participate in this forum. I'm not a facilitator, I'm a user. I'm the president of the Association of Entrepreneurs of a small town called Atarfe in Granada. And I didn't want to go for lunch in solidarity with my facilitator who's here today. And I think that we should all go to have lunch together. But I haven't got a question. The only thing that I would like to ask authorities on whom the Guadalinfo network depends is that they bear one thing in mind. SMEs are maintaining this country today. They're keeping the country afloat. And until Guadalinfo came, nobody ever gave them any notice at all. And those brands that you can see here, those companies, those large corporations that may have paid this event and who can have the luxury of having a wonderful, huge web page, that's not the case in small companies. What has Guadalinfo done? Well, Guadalinfo has done all of this for us. Our local council has managed to establish a server, and Guadalinfo is allowing small entrepreneurs to have something very important. What's important for us is that clients come to us. Guadalinfo has given us the key, and they've given us the necessary confidence to be able to overcome this economic crisis. I'm willing to devote half of the salary that I earn in the afternoons to make sure that the Guadalinfo never disappears, because they are the true pillars of this evolution. There are not many entrepreneurs in the association. There's only 98 of us. But I'm sure that very few have not taken training. They've received training about how to use a computer right through to the design of a web page. And I'd like to say a word in favor of facilitators. You mentioned that facilitators may be the ones who have to go out into the street to promote and disseminate knowledge and information about Guadalinfo. So they would need at least 2 in Guadalinfo. Guadalinfo, when people come to Guadalinfo to present a project, just as we have tried to do, we've thought that this is a training office, or where's the person who's going to attend me, so that I can calmly dedicate the necessary time to present the project. So what we're asking for is, if they're going to go out, then you have to give them somebody to help them, somebody who's there when they're away from the office, away from the centre, because it's neither us nor the administration that will maintain the centres. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your intervention. Well, Guadalinfo's facilitators have many helpers, all social stakeholders who work with them, just like yourselves. many people who are our mentors, many people who are gradually making our community grow, many of the people who are here today. And undoubtedly they do a great service to ensure that Guadalinfo will continue to grow in this direction, not just through the establishment of new sectors, but also by adding more people who will help us and act as social drivers of change. And that is one of the changes that Guadalinfo also has to take on board. In other words, share with social facilitators in the territory, because they are true levers of development in the territory, and they have to become our maximum allies in this process of change. David, as regards the comments I made about dissemination and promotion, I don't think this should conclude in a confrontation. It's important for people to coexist and to combine their approaches and initiatives. Those of you who are facilitators know that whenever we see an entrepreneur, we tell them about the project, etc. And we do this from one to one. We are obviously working mainly in small towns and villages, and our main aim is to ensure that these people will go directly to the centre. It's a job that we've been doing for a long time. And it's not just so that citizens can learn about the project, but also to increase the visibility of the project and ensure that people attribute greater value to the project at national level as well. Because many of the videos that are being showed on Guadalinfo projects, etc., are extremely important and can be very influential. They provide a lot of information, and if such a video was to be broadcast on television in the form of a short advert or as publicity, this would not give people a full idea of the project globally and at national level. Thank you very much. Any more questions? I'm not sure if anyone else wishes to take the floor. Yes, well, if there are no more comments, well, I would like to ask a question myself. I'd like to know if any of you had been sitting where we are and would have to take decisions regarding what has to be done with the network, with the projects, etc. What aspects would you address with greater urgency? Which aspects would you prioritize? That's a good question. Angel has laid down the baton. What decisions would you take? Well, first of all, good afternoon. Well, to be honest, the users I have at my centres demand is teletraining. Teletraining. In other words, they want training on aspects that we cannot provide them with support. A clear example would be the university, as the lady from the university said. It was very interesting. I can't remember your name, I'm sorry. I think that this type of training is perhaps the most important for somebody to be able to carry out a project. First of all, what they need is knowledge. The users that we have that come to our centre today have zero knowledge, and it's very difficult to work with these type of people. Well, do you know that the mock platform of the Guadalinfo was launched a few days ago? It's the first mock platform for social innovation, and I'd just like to take advantage of this moment to promote that. Anything else? Any more comments? There's a young teacher who's an art historian at Cordoba University, who's also taking the crisis to the classroom. With his students, he's preparing a map of the crisis in Cordoba. He's looking at the way in which the crisis has affected retailers, families in the last 2 or 3 years, as well as small entrepreneurs. And I think that that is a very important project for Guadalinfo. The idea is to map the crisis, but also to find responses to it. And I think at this moment in time, Guadalinfo's role, with a view to mapping the crisis and the loss of spaces for citizens in the territory, well, I think that increasing the visibility of this problem is very important so that we can also be in a position to present solutions. And I would just like to make that comment to mention the work by this professor at University of Cordoba, Pablo Barasco, and I'd also like to just mention him for those facilitators who are working in the province of Cordoba, because I think that sharing this type of experience shows us that we have to adopt a shared agenda, an agenda which is shared between the university and also other spaces in society. And that's where Guadalinfo can play an important role. And I think that this could also carry out studies which would be of utmost importance. Thank you very much. Okay, we're now going to draw things to a close. Well, good afternoon. I'm over here on the corner, here on the left. Good afternoon. My name is David. I'm from Guadalinfo Center in Huelva, and in my opinion, I think that we should agree on two approaches. One has to focus on the fact that each local center has to belong to a large family, and also employees of the regional government. It shouldn't be a case of every 4 years the party and governments would change. I think that we have to strengthen their union. That's the first point. And secondly, I think the question of confirming training criteria that have to be adopted, it's very useful for us to have English lessons and lessons on other subjects, but it's true that in the labour market is asking for us to fulfil certain levels of quality and standards in training and to assure that these courses are accredited, because otherwise people will not be able to find jobs. And so I think that we have to work on those two important areas. Thank you.
Muy bien, hemos oído poco, pero muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Well, I didn't hear it very well, but maybe if we talk later on, you can tell me more about it. And I didn't quite understand part of the first part. Yes, Ángel José Juan Guerra was saying, joking, of course, in Twitter, that he's saying that if I were the politician, Guadalinfo depends on, I would say, let's go have lunch, because I have a very, very small pension money.
Esta nota de humor le vamos a ceder la palabra a Ángel Ortiz.
And we're going to give Ángel Ortiz the floor so that he can bring this session to a close. It's been very interesting. And, of course, we will do what Guadalinfo Inajar says. He's saying that in the next Spark 14, we're having problems with the sound.
¿Sí? El sueldo. Sí.
Sí, al final
Decía que...
Yes, I was saying that the Spark 14 won't be held in Andalusia. We know that. But, and it's probable that we will never have a global forum like this one here. But we would like this event and this panel. This was very important for us. These people from the original government here. It's very important for us to have this session being brought to a close by Ángel García. Thank you.
No.
Ya, directamente.
Ahora te escucha este.
Si quieres el mío, ahora funciona.
If you like to use my microphone. What I basically wanted to say is that those of you who know me, although I have maybe a slightly more political profile, that you know that I work with the technical part of the project, and of course I'm going to be here during the whole day today to be able to talk for longer about the same topic. Of course, the schedule limits us. But I'm at your disposal in the corridors and everywhere. If you meet me, you can talk to me. Sometimes politicians have this image that we're inaccessible. And of course, in my case, I always try not to show that image. And of course, you can come and talk to me and we can have a talk or anything. Thank you very much for being here. Keep on supporting the project as you're doing because it's in your own hands. Thank you.